Hey, Sean, I'm very excited to make this video. I guess in the spirit of Cyber Monday, you can have a free plugin available in the description below. But what really happened is I made my first plugin, and I made it out of necessity and realized it might be something that is valuable to other people as well. But before I eventually maybe make this available for sale, to the few of you that will watch this video just because it's something that I did, please take it for free. And if you download it and use it and offer me any feedback on it or notice any issues with it, when I fix this and make version 2, I will make sure you get it for free. So I appreciate it. It's in the description. So here is the deal. I'm going to walk through what this does, and then how I did it, if that's of interest to you. And in the description is how you can download it. So when I'm doing interviews, I don't have any good vision for putting someone's title on the screen. I'm awful at it. And so I've bought a lot of plugins that are very dynamic ways of putting things on screen where they animate in different ways, but so often it's so noisy and full of animation, or it's a box on the screen. I just don't like the way that stuff looks. My favorite way, it's in a lot of documentaries now where, like, if you're shooting somebody in like a blank space, there's just room on the wall for you to put their title in plain text. And so if you can shoot something in a way where there's just sort of good negative space that you can put a title on, it looks so good. It looks so clean. I love that. And that's my favorite thing to do. But sometimes when you're shooting, or if someone else has shot it, the frame just doesn't have like that clean, perfect background, or there's something there that makes it hard to read text over it. And so looking here, here's one where it's not that bad, but here's someone that I had shot an interview of a few years ago, and their name I decided to put sort of, it's lower than I would want it, but it's on the floor there. And you can see as the floor has the highlights in it, it can be a little difficult to see all this. And yes, it's a very long title. But even if this gets slid around a little bit, like you can see, there's places where it's just sort of hard to see because of what's going on in the background. And so this is what I wanted to address. And what I started doing, it was actually for this woman's interview here. And you can see in the background, it's already kind of bokeh out, but I wanted it to be even more readable. And I was getting close with what I was doing in here. And then it dawned on me, what I need to do is have a little bit of a subtle color overlay, either black or white, whatever's in contrast to the text. And then I also want to further blur the background. I don't just want it to be just over a colored box. And so what I made is Sean's titles, background blur version 2. And so you can see, if we let's take Dr. Art McCoy here. There's a post in the background here right underneath the A that causes, like, it's just a little trickier to read, and especially as the background moves a little bit with the moving camera. And so if we instead bring down this new background blur, a couple things happen, and I'm going to show you where the defaults are, and then I'm going to change them a little bit so you can see what's happening a little bit better. First of all, we're going to change it from the left side to the right side. We're going to keep the white text on black, but we could do black text on white. We can change the vertical position, maybe pull it up off of his shoulder a little bit. I'm going to drag up the color opacity to full just so you can see the other things a little easier as I do this. But you can adjust the width depending on how long the person's name and title are. I'm going to extend it just a little bit past there. Height is the same way. I'm going to bring that down. The roundness is the corner of that box. I'm going to pull that up pretty round. And then the feather is how feathered it is. And so I'm going to pull that up pretty high and bring my height in a little bit. And then I'm going to pull my opacity back down. You can see with this blur amount that when I drag that up, the background blurs out where that now invisible box is. And so by picking the right mix of, I want a little bit of blur, and then I'm also going to pull up that color a little bit to darken it just so the white text pops a little more. And if I drag it up too high, you can start to see it, and that's not what I want. But right about there, is a good subtle name on screen for me, and this fits. This is what I want. It's clean, but it's legible. It's easy. It pops, and it's subtle. It's not a big box. It's not an animation. It's not a theme of the video. And so this is what I made. This is the plugin that makes this possible. And so I can come over here and do the same thing with Dr. Hardin-Bartley. And here's another feature. You'll see it animates on. The box animates on just a half a moment before. I think it's literally a quarter of a second, and then the name fades on, and the whole thing takes less than a half a second. And then it fades out at the end. But you'll see there, it's too long. So I made it where if I shorten it, you still get the fade out. It doesn't just crop that off. It retimes it all somehow magically in the middle. But now with Dr. Hardin-Bartley, I'm not going to change the title on screen for this, but I can do the same thing. I can do white text on black or black text on white. I can change the vertical position of this. I'm going to pull it up right about here at the bottom of these shelves. And you can see if I do no blur, it's tricky to read that over those white shelves in the background. And so if I just pull that blur up a little bit, it gets a lot easier to see, but then it's a little intense of that box. So I'm going to feather that out a little bit more, bring down my height, pull in my width a little bit, and I'm going to bring up the darkness just a hair so it pops. And again, here now I have, yes, it's a little bit more visible on this clip, but it's a busier background. It's necessary. But now this pops, and it's not a big rectangle on the screen or a bouncing this or that. It's just the text on the screen, but there's enough separation due to the blur and the color that you can actually read it. So I like this, and I'm already using this just as I've been messing with it. And so I'm going to make this plugin available in the description. You can download it probably from my Dropbox, install it. And if you notice any issues, if you're finding that it crashes or does weird things, or when you use it in a different frame rate project, the plugin's made at 60 frames a second in 4K. This project is in 1080 at 24 frames a second, and it works exactly like I'd expect it to. But if you notice anything funky with where you're trying to use it, let me know, because again, when I fix these things, I'll be happy to provide it to you again free if you are any part of helping me refine it. And maybe I'll eventually get to sell it and earn some of that sweet, sweet revenue people talk about. And lastly, if you're interested, I'm going to show you how it works real quick if you want to try building it yourself. So over here in Motion, there's just a handful of layers. First of all is the actual background. You can see if I turn this off, we lose that background. With how Motion works, we need to see this. And then this other part here, so I have a clone of that background, and then there's a blur on it, and that's what we're affecting with that blur slider. And then there's a black background, which it's hard to see here, but as this toggles on and off, that's that color overlay. And so these two things have clipping masks on them, or shape masks that are linked to this background shape, which is invisible, but this is the rectangle which is affecting the mask on the blur layer and the color layer, black or white. And when you adjust the size of it, this is what you're adjusting. When you adjust the height of it, you're adjusting the location of this box. And this box is affecting the blur layer and the color layer on top of that. And then there's just two text layers, and then the sort of tricky part was making a left justified and a right justified, where I had to switch the anchor points and the position so that if the box gets bigger because the name gets longer, it doesn't resize in the wrong direction. It'll extend naturally into the frame whether you're on the left or the right. So that took a little bit of troubleshooting to figure out. And then the timing, here's where I made the build-in mandatory at about 30 frames of the 60, and then again at 530 before the end of it, so that when you retime it, it comes from this middle section here, so you can make it really long or really short, and you'll still keep that nice fade in and fade out. And then I made it default to 6 seconds, because that's about what I do for most titles, and you can easily make it longer or shorter from there. So that's how I made it, and it was a really fun experience. It made me think about things a little differently. If you haven't made one of these before, you should, because it's a fun, neat thing, and I learned a lot more about how the programs work and how they talk to each other, and I don't mess a lot with Motion, and so it was fun to do so for this. So again, check it out in the description if you're interested, and I'm interested in any feedback you may have if you use it, or maybe something else you wish you could control this or that, and that would work better for your projects. Would different colors work, or full color control, whatever it would be. Let me know. This is just supposed to be a quick, easy way to subtly add titles on screen for your projects. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching this. I appreciate it. I realize that when I make the plugin, if I want to sell it, I'll probably make a very clickbait video about new, sleek, subtle title plugin available, and I'll sell that, and that may get caught in the algorithm, and hopefully people will see it and find it and buy it. But to those of you who, with this very much less clickbaity title, were interested in what I did and how I did it, I really appreciate it. And again, if you offer me any feedback, let me know. Reach out through email on my website, and I'll be sure that you get the final copy of the plugin for free. Thanks a lot. That's all I got. See you later. Bye.